We're going to offer you a new resource today. Many of you have heard me refer to something called the Book of Common Prayer. This is one of the copies of Book of Common Prayer that I have. Perhaps you've never heard of it, perhaps you've never used it before, or perhaps you have some limited experience with it. I found it to be a really helpful resource in my own prayer and devotional life. Sometimes we like to be spontaneous. Sometimes we like to, in our time with God, just have kind of free or open time where we're thinking about and talking with God about whatever comes to our mind. But I find that I need some structure. I find I need some help to kind of structure my prayer life. Now, once I have that structure, I have the freedom to kind of utilize it as the Spirit leads. But the Book of Common Prayer was a resource put together 500 years ago in the Church of England because they wanted to take what was established prayer life in the monastic communities. 7 times a day they would pray, and they would do certain things, and they would use all the resources of the early church in order to pray as monks. But you had to go to monasteries to do this. And the folks who put this book together really felt like we want to give families resources to know how to pray in their homes, to pray together in the morning, evening. So you know that in ancient Hebrew culture, 3 times a day, there was a pattern of prayer. The monastics had 7 times a day, the offices, the daily offices, right? So the folks who put this together said, we're going to actually, in English, give people resources to pray 3 times a day, morning, noon, and evening. Now they also have in here a compline service, which is a late evening prayer. But in this Book of Common Prayer, there is a service that you could actually use in a family setting, personally, individually, or some churches use it to structure their worship services. So I'm going to just talk to you about morning prayer in the Book of Common Prayer and the elements that are in there. But you could find, if you had your own copy, you would find evening prayer, noonday prayer, family prayer. You would find a host of other resources. Like this is it for the Church of England. This covers almost every scenario. And they have prayers for almost everything. But I'm just going to go through the morning office this morning. In the morning office, you're given some opening sentences of Scripture to start to think about, to pray, to meditate on, to start your time. So you read the opening Scripture and you take a few minutes to just be quiet and meditate on it. Then you enter into a time of confession. This is where you're processing, kind of like, am I carrying something into the setting? And it leads you through a process of kind of naming and then contemplating and praying through and then asking for forgiveness in this section of the morning office. So I start with just some brief meditation, then some confession. Then there's this little section where you're asked to prepare your heart to worship. It's an invitation, invitatory. That's what it's called. And then you're given one of 2 psalms, the Venite or the Jubilate, which are Psalm 100 and Psalm 95, one of those 2, to pray through almost every day. And I've actually memorized them because I felt like they were so helpful for me to say regularly. But they give you this psalm, and then it leads into reading, a reading of a psalm and a reading of another text. So this is where the lectionary, if you're reading the lectionary, you can use any of the readings there. But I typically read just one New Testament passage and a psalm in this section, and I slowly read it, I meditate on it, I write down any thoughts that come of it, but there is a section for processing Scripture within the morning office. After the readings, you're invited to kind of say the creed, which is the essence of the Christian faith. I find it to be very fruitful personally. And then it leads you to the Lord's Prayer. On a different video, we've talked about how to use the Lord's Prayer, but for me, it's an invitation to really pray deeply into the day that God has laid before me. After that, there is a collect. It's a prayer. There's actually a prayer for each day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, through Sunday, that you can pray for that day before it ends with a prayer for mission. It's a prayer from St. Chrysostom just to kind of like lead me out into my life. So it sounds like a lot, but again, you can do this in 15 minutes and you can do it in 45 minutes. I'd suggest if you're interested in this, you get a Book of Common Prayer. You can always connect with me about how to use this resource, but work with it. What I found is I've prayed this same morning prayer office for the last 3 months every day. And at first it was really interesting, and then it was a little bit drab, and now it's becoming really rich and deep. And it's a part of how I start my day every day. And it's become very meaningful to me. So if you're looking for a little bit more structure in your morning devotional time, and you're looking to use different elements, not just kind of free form, but really more structure, I'd invite you to look at in the Book of Common Prayer, the morning office. And it's the very beginning of the book. And if you're looking to where you get a Book of Common Prayer, you can have online resources. There are apps, but I would get a nice hard copy, and I can help you find one of those. I hope this is a resource to you, and I hope this is a way of bearing really good fruit in a structured form for the way that you start your day. Grace and peace to you.